In this episode, I'm going to talk about the best horror movies of 2023. I've already covered the worst, so let's talk about cinematic achievements, shall we? Oh, I'm so excited for this.
Every arrow that flies feels the pull of the earth. But we must aim upwards.
Welcome to my channel. Thank you for clicking on my video.
Hello world! I'm Chris Maitini, aka Mr. Flickster!
Mr. Flickster! Ooh, honestly, darling, I'm so glad you made it for the Season 3 finale. I'm still getting ready, darling. Ooh. My feet are so ticklish, but the show must go on. Ooh. Ooh. Please keep in mind, this is just my opinion. Do you agree with my picks? These are my highest recommendations, the gold standard of horror for 2023. We had a pretty good year last year. What was your favorite horror movie of 2023? Leave comments below to talk about it. Honestly, darling, I'm jumping for joy. Daddy, you forgot the spoiler warning. At number 5, I have Renfield.
I am Dracula.
Okay, obviously we're dealing with a little bit more than just narcissism here.
Renfield, Dracula's tortured henchman, is forced to capture prey for his master and do his every bidding. But now, after centuries of servitude, Renfield is ready to see if there's life outside his boss's shadow.
It was directed by Chris McKay. It was written by Ryan Ridley and Robert Kirkman.
It stars Nicolas Cage, Nicholas Hoult, Awkwafina, Ben Schwartz,
Brandon Scott Jones.
and Camille Chen. This is a delightful flick that I could really sink my teeth into. It's full of fun references from classic Dracula films featuring Bela Lugosi and Christopher Lee. It's not only a loving tribute to classic horror movies, it approaches the source material inspired by the 1897 novel Dracula by Bram Stoker from a different perspective. I love the use of various colored lights. This film is so vividly lit, it's beautiful to look at. The colors! Oh, the colors! The set designs and the costumes are also very well done. There's a lot of fun camera work too. It uses touch angles with quick short editing cuts. There's lots of different camera pans. The camera hardly sits still at all, but it's not jarring or anything like that. It gives the film so much energy. The special effects makeup and the wire work are fantastically done. The CGI is pretty good too. I could not believe how gory this got. The cartoonish level of violence reaches an itchy and scratchy level of absurdity.
This movie is hilarious. I laughed out loud the whole time.
But if you were to stop focusing on his needs, what would happen?
He won't grow to full power.
It's just so quotable, too.
Exactly. He won't grow to full power. What? That's so weird. Why would you phrase it like that? But yes!
One minor complaint that I have is it kind of feels like two movies in one. That's why it's not higher up on the list. There's the action comedy aspect with the crime family, and then there's the horror side of things with Nicolas Cage. Why not just stick with the Slayer story that you set up initially instead of going off on that tangent? But I don't want to say too much. Nicolas Cage perfectly captures the persona of the character of Dracula. But this is his cagiest performance in years. This performance is another example of why he's one of my all-time favorite actors. It looks like he's having so much fun, too. He can be taken seriously during dramatic moments. He's funny, and he can be scary as hell when he has to be. He doesn't disappoint in the slightest regard. He completely loses himself in the character. He's such a great Dracula. Nicholas Hoult does fine in the titular role, but to be fair, I'm not really a fan of his acting in the first place. Don't get me wrong, he's got his moments, but I didn't really like him in The Menu, and I didn't really like him in Warm Bodies, or even as Beast for that matter in the X-Men. I'm not even sure why. I can't really explain it. He's just never really won me over as an actor. But he's good here, I guess. Although he does have the physicality to play the part. I'll give him that. I'll give credit where credit's due. Some of this fight choreography is very impressive. His character's got this deranged awkwardness to him that's done really well. And he's really good at being frightened, too. Or disgusted. Another minor complaint that I have is I'm not really a fan of Awkwafina as Officer Rebecca Quincy. I just don't think she's very funny. She has yet to give me a performance that I like. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm sure she's a great person, but I just don't like her acting. And her voice. My god, her voice drives me nuts. I can't stand her voice. How does she keep getting voice acting jobs? I'd prefer if literally anybody else played this role.
Ben Schwartz provides great comic relief. After seeing him in Sonic, it's hilarious to see him like this.
It's the real fucking Dracula!
Brandon Scott Jones has great comedic delivery. He has some of the best quotes.
The script touches on themes of abusive relationships, destructive codependency, self-empowerment, and self-discovery. And it all gets tied up in a nice neat little bow at the end. It's got a very satisfying conclusion without saying too much. Fun fact, did you know there's over 80 Dracula movies? Honestly, darling, nobody has any business playing Dracula after Nicolas Cage. The rest suck. You could say, this flick has bite.
Now, let's eat.
Surprise! It's now a film critic extraordinaire. I don't know what's scarier, Nicolas Cage as Dracula, or how Awkwafina keeps getting weak.
At number 4, I have When Evil Lurks.
Hay un embichado en el pueblo.
Estás asustando a mi familia.
This is the foreign film from Argentina, presented in Spanish with English subtitles. It's not the only foreign film on this list, but I'll get to that. In a remote village, 2 brothers find a demon-infected man just about to give birth to evil itself. They decide to get rid of the body, only to end up unintentionally spreading the chaos. So, When Evil Lurks was written and directed by Damien Rugna. It stars Ezekiel Rodriguez, Damian Solomon, Silvina Sobiter, Louise Ziembrowski, and Federico Lis. I'm sorry if I butchered those names. Oh my god. This is amazing. Think of this of like Evil Dead meets Walking Dead. I know, this is a possession film. But this ain't your average possession film. This is a possession film that thinks outside the box. And that says a lot coming from me, because I don't like possession films, like I explained in my review of Exorcist Believer. After seeing the original Exorcist, they all just kind of seem like the same to me. I don't really watch possession films, I don't seek them out. They're not for me. But this flick was recommended to me by my editor at Horror Buzz. He said it was a must-watch. And this did not disappoint. I love this movie. It's a fantastically told story with such incredible atmosphere. And don't get me started on the gore. You won't believe how gory this gets. It's got genuinely shocking moments like the dog scene and the goat scene. I was not expecting them to go that far that fast. Flipping emotional connections are established immediately with the characters on their journey. It makes the gore so much more impactful. This movie is so gory too. I love the way the goat scene and the dog scene are staged and shot in particular. It holds on each take long enough to sit in the moment before quickly cutting to another camera angle for the perspective of a different character. It's the kind of flick that sticks with you long after. It's gonna make you feel icky after. This isn't fun horror by any means. You see what they see. You feel what they feel as it's happening in the moment. Now that's good filmmaking. No, the thing is, the flick isn't for everybody. I can't stress that enough. The reason why it's not higher up on the list is because it's not all that rewatchable. I actually dread watching it again, which is a testament to how impactful the gore is. It's the kind of horror movie that makes you want to take a shower afterwards, just so you can wash off all the ickiness. Again, this is not for everyone. It's got kids in peril and a goat and a dog die. It might sound sick, but I like when kids and pets get killed off in horror movies because it really amps up the stakes in that sense that nobody's safe in horror movies. So if you can't handle that kind of stuff, you've been warned. And it's so true too. Nobody's safe in this movie. Nobody's safe at all. But, you know what? I don't want to say too much. I don't want to say too much. You gotta see When Evil Lurks. And don't let the fact that it's a foreign film scare you. I don't get why some people can't just read subtitles. But hey, whatever. To each their own, I guess. And this is streaming on Shudder, so you can watch it now if you want to. So pause the video, go watch it, come back, finish the video.
Los tiempos de la fe se terminan rápido.
Well. This is my question. Why did the demon's girlfriend break up with him? Because he was too possessive. At number 3, I have Totally Killer.
Hate time travel movies. They never make any sense.
You know I had to have a slasher on this list. If you've been watching my channel, there's no surprise that slashers are my favorite subgenre of horror. I got all my little slashers right here. I keep them together. when the infamous Sweet 16 killer returns 35 years after his first murder spree to claim another victim. 17-year-old Jamie accidentally travels back in time to 1987, determined to stop the killer before he can start. This flick was directed by Nahnatchka Khan. It was written by David Madelon and Sasha Pearl Raver. It stars Kiernan Shipka, Olivia Holt, Charlie Gillespie, Lachlan Monroe, Troy Leanne Johnson, Liana Liberato, Julie Bowen, Jonathan Potts, and Randall Park. This is totally Back to the Future meets Scream.
Totally.
Similar to Happy Death Day, Freaky, and It's a Wonderful Knife, this takes a classic story and spins it with a slasher twist. It's got a great blend of humor and horror. While it's funny, the scary parts are actually scary, and it doesn't just rely on cheap jump scares. It's got self-aware humor that doesn't wink at the audience too much, which is good because that can get annoying after a while. The characters are likable with hilarious dynamics amongst the group, so I cared about certain characters when they died. It has a fully developed, immersive story, with actual character development, and an intriguing mystery. It's got this whodunit aspect, and I couldn't predict the killer. And when the big reveal does happen, it makes sense. They even take it a step further and add a little something extra, but I don't want to say too much. I can't overstate how consistently funny this movie is. It's very rewatchable too. I can't help but laugh each time I watch this flick. And I notice things each time that I didn't notice the last time. There's so much thought put into the script. Everything from the set designs, to the costumes, to the hairstyles, it just feels so 80s. I love how the cinematography changes between the past and the present. In the present, there's more muted color tones, and then in the past, it switches to more vibrant color tones. It makes it easier to distinguish which time period you're in, too. Which is good because there's two different plot lines on the two different timelines. This story structure creates a race against time to fix both time periods. There's a lot of running gags based on callbacks to conversations characters had throughout the film. Like this one about Back to the Future, but I don't want to say too much because it is really funny. It just makes you think, oh yeah, they did say that. It does a good job of pointing out how the 80s was a very different time. It shows a modern girl's take on what life was like in the past, and vice versa. I like how it's not just a one-sided argument, it shows both sides of the coin, by pointing out the idiosyncrasies of how some people are way too PC nowadays, compared to how conversations were back in the past, when it was much more relaxed. So instead of a culture clash, it's more of a time clash, if that makes sense. The plot is fast-paced, but it doesn't feel rushed. And I love the Sweet 16 Killer's costume. It's so creepy. It's so cool how this is a Halloween-themed movie, too. I can see myself watching this every year when it comes time for the spooky season. It pokes fun at itself because it raises questions about logical time travel paradoxes that are kind of unavoidable in sci-fi movies. They tend to happen, but hey, at least it's got a sense of humor about itself. It sets up its own rules, too, because it compares time and the flow of it to a river. Another thing I gotta mention is, even though there's not a whole lot of it, this movie does have some good gore effects, and I almost prefer practical effects over CGI. There's just something about CGI blood, it really bothers me. And every good slasher's gotta have good gore. I've been waiting so long for a good modern day slasher flick, because in my opinion the last couple Screams haven't been that great, but I already touched on that in my worst horror movies of 2023 video, and I'll leave a link below for that. Like, don't expect a splatterfest or anything like that, but there's some pretty good stuff here. So, you could say, it's about time.
Maybe if she did do blowjobs, she'd still be alive.
Yeah, let's not make that the lesson.
Hi. Meow. Oh, yeah. So, Amelia is best friends with time traveler Jamie, right? Yes. Honestly, darling, what is the point? So that means they must go way back. No. Whatever, darling.
And number 2 is Godzilla -1.
This is a foreign film from Japan, presented in Japanese with English subtitles.
Post-war Japan is at its lowest point when a crisis emerges in the form of a giant monster, baptized in the horrific power of the atomic bomb.
So, Godzilla -1
was written and directed by
Takashi Yamazaki.
Godzilla was created by
Ichiro Honda and Takeo Murata. The film stars Minami Hamabe, Ryonosuke Kamiki, Kuranosuke Sasaki, Munetaka Aroki,
and Hidetake Yoshioka.
This is the Godzilla movie I've been waiting for. And I don't want to hear any BS argument that this isn't a horror movie. Because believe it or not, once you see this movie, you will believe. This is such an aggressive, destructive Godzilla. He's monstrous. For a little bit of context, I grew up watching the older Godzilla movies with the guys in the rubber suits and the miniatures and stuff. So I've been waiting for a good, modern version of Godzilla for a while. 'Cause, to be perfectly honest, I hate American Godzilla movies with a passion. Not only is Godzilla scary again, they took a simple premise and gave the characters room to learn and grow. And they did what the American films couldn't. They actually made me care about the human characters. Whoa. I had the biggest grin on my face when Godzilla was walking through the city. The little kid in me just burst into confetti. I love how it's filmed in long, wide shots. Surprisingly, during the day too, so you can't hide the CGI. And it looks awesome! I love how the train scene is filmed with that classic movie magic. Obviously, it's a combination of live action and CGI. Possibly some green screens too, but I'm not sure where that line is. It's kind of like that car scene in John Wick 4. I have no idea how they pulled that off. It's mind-blowing. Just seeing him do that classic Godzilla walk made me so happy. I love how they utilized the original Godzilla roar, too. They don't try to reinvent the wheel here, either. They took what worked before and reapplied it in new ways. I love how it shows the perspective, as if you were looking up at Godzilla from down below. I wouldn't want to be in those civilian shoes. The film also demonstrates how devastating the atomic breath can be, and when he fires up, it is a horrifying moment. See? Monstrous! Hearing that classic Godzilla score gave me chills, too. The score at the level of triumphant glory and epic magnitude to every action scene. It was music to my ears when I heard the original Godzilla theme, too. It was so happy.
And the way they filmed that ocean scene is just terrifying.
And yes, while it does take the subject matter seriously, it still takes time for little funny moments here and there. But it's done in such a satisfying way that it doesn't detract from any of the serious parts when the funny moments happen. There's just something special about having a sense of humor. Being able to laugh with different characters, it makes it easier to connect with them. The CGI looks amazing, and it was only made at a fraction of the cost of big-budget Hollywood blockbusters. Isn't that right, Nala?
Certainly. So, you think you're so tough, Godzilla? I could take ya. Let me at him. Let me at him. Let me go, Daddy. Yeah.
This book completely surprised me because it came out of nowhere, and I knew nothing about it until I saw it. I only found out about it a few days before it came out. And this had such a limited release in theaters. Consider yourself lucky if you were able to see it when it came out. It deals with themes of grief and survivor's guilt, which I find very relatable because of personal reasons. So it's visually stunning, directed on an epic scale, innovatively written with complex characters, and well acted, which makes it a must-see horror flick of 2023. Seeing the main protagonist's growing frustration and anguish because of Godzilla is so enthralling to me. That's why I hate the American-made Godzilla movies so much. There's too many subplots, so they lose focus on who the main character is. Godzilla. It's man versus nature. How do you stop an unstoppable force? This one man's personal vendetta is what drives the plot here. On his journey, he comes across these other people that he makes friends with, who eventually help him out. The bulk of the film is his internal struggle. So you have this man versus nature aspect. And then on the other side, you have this existential crisis too. So essentially, there's only two subplots. And it works amazingly well. This is the Godzilla flick I've been waiting for practically my whole life. I love Japanese culture, and I especially appreciate the historical significance of Godzilla. It shows a simple, focused concept goes a long way. And it's especially satisfying for your lizard brain.
Godzilla -1.
Well. Did you hear about that time when Godzilla had diarrhea? It was all over town. Ho ho ho.
So, before I get to my number one pick, I just have a few honorable mentions. First, I want to talk about Talk to Me.
They like you.
So, I'm going to talk to you about Talk to Me. And then you can talk to me about Talk to Me. And then you can talk to me about talking to me about Talk to Me. While I talk to you. Wait. You get it. just leave comments. And we'll talk about Talk to Me. So anyways, this is a thought-provoking, heavily atmospheric Australian film. It doesn't spoon-feed the audience, so it lets you interpret it in your own way, which is good. Art should do that. It should make you reflect on it. And this one will do that, because it stuck with me long after I watched it. The first time I saw a preview for this was before Insidious 5. And ever since then, I was very intrigued and I was looking forward to it, and it did not disappoint. It's a simple, focused story, full of character development that makes you think. Why can't Hollywood do that? I hope you're taking notes. The special effects look fantastic. I was surprised by the level of gore that's in this flick. The preview didn't lead on to any of that, so I was pleasantly surprised. The amount of gore was unexpected, therefore truly shocking. The characters were likable, and I love the dynamics between them. It sets that up pretty quickly, so you understand who they are and where they're coming from and how their relationships are with each other as soon as you're going into it. I like how it kept a consistently unpredictable plot too. Most of the time I had no idea where it was going, and that's awesome. I love movies that keep me guessing. It's also full of innovative camera work and sound design. This is a different take on the possession film, so I really appreciate how they think outside the box with it. It does this cool tilt motion every time it does the possession. It starts here, and then when the head goes back, you follow it with the camera. And it does a lot of long takes. and these tracking shots. I kind of follow characters around the room. The way the demon's looking at them and stuff like that. It's awesome. The reason it's not officially on my top 5 is because this is a very bleak, dark, nihilistic, mean-spirited story. This is not fun horror, like some of the ones on my list. This has things that are really horrifying, like kids in peril. And it has animals dying, too. Kind of like When Evil Lurks, or even the more recent Hereditary, it's not all that rewatchable. When a movie makes you dread seeing it again, it really says something about the impact it made on me on a psychological level. It's a very well-made film. But just like When Evil Lurks, it's got that need to take a shower factor. Despite all the stuff I just said, I do like this film enough that I bought the Blu-ray. So if you like movies like Insidious, or Hereditary, or if you've seen When Evil Lurks, you'll like this film. But, like those, they're not for everybody. And I totally understand if you don't want to watch this flick.
You could say, keep calm and carry on.
So, in other words, this isn't biting the hand that feeds ya. It's feeding the hand that bites ya. Meow, 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 meow. And I know all about biting hands. Yeah.
Next, I want to talk about Evil Dead Rise.
You don't look so good, Mom. Nothing a big old kiss from you won't fix.
This has one of the best intros to a horror movie that I've seen in a long time. It immediately sets the tone for what you're about to see. As soon as I saw the opening, I knew I was going to enjoy this. Full of fun, rapid camera movements, and innovative camera angles and lenses too. The cinematography is all around spectacular. It has an interesting story with likable, sympathetic characters trapped in a high-rise instead of the usual cabin in the woods cliche. So it's a nice change of setting. They really use that to their advantage too, in my opinion. They really capture that claustrophobic atmosphere. You actually feel trapped, even though you're in this big city. And being in a highly populated area makes the stakes a lot higher. The sound design adds to that claustrophobic atmosphere too. It really makes you pay attention to what you're hearing. More importantly, this has fun with the concept, whereas the remake failed in that area, in my opinion. I wasn't really a big fan of the 2013 remake. I thought it took all the fun out of it, unlike the first 3 films. Those are kind of kooky, kind of wacky, doesn't take itself too seriously. I really felt the absence of that with the 2013 remake. This film is way more fun. I had low expectations going in, but I was pleasantly surprised. It's very rewatchable. It's just an enjoyable, short and sweet 90 minutes. This flick is groovy.
What will be.
Honestly, darling, I don't have a boomstick. However, you should still hail to the Queen, baby.
Another one I wanted to mention was the new Haunted Mansion.
This house is dripping with souls, but there's always room for one more.
It's a flick that got a lot of hate, but I'm really surprised because I enjoyed it. I don't understand where all this hate's coming from. Can you believe it's been 20 years since the original Eddie Murphy flick? I'm a huge Disney fan, and I've been to both Disney World and Disneyland, so I've ridden both versions of it in the States. I have a lot of fond memories of going to the parks, and that was one of my favorite rides when I was there. So I loved all the callbacks and all the Easter eggs, and it was fun pointing out the different things that was from the ride. New Orleans is beautifully shot, showing off the French Quarter's most famous locations like Bourbon Street. I love the costumes and the set designs. I do wish there was more interaction between the protagonist and the spirits though. Still, there's a lot of impressive CGI here, and I love the editing, the transitions from one scene to another scene. Very imaginative. It's full of fun, high-energy camera movements, so it never stays still on one character for too long. There's a good combination of comedy and creepiness too. It has some serious moments, so you really feel sympathetic for the characters. And the cast displays good acting. Everyone has their moments, but none of the dramatic emotional parts slow down the film. I felt like it had a pretty good pace. The movie takes its time to sit in each moment before transitioning to the next scene to set up the next comedy gag or the next scare. It's really well balanced in that area. The cast has great chemistry, but I can't help but feel like there's too many characters. That would have given more time for more character dynamics to see how they play off each other. But when they do all get together, I don't mind so much because they are really funny. Especially Danny DeVito and Tiffany Haddish. They're hilarious. But the real highlight is Lakeith Stanfield. One moment he's hilarious, one moment he's heartwarming. He's such an empathetic character. Because you need an actor like that to really drive a film. And I love Jamie Lee Curtis as Madame Leota. She brings a whole different style to the character, a whole different attitude. The funny thing is, she's practically unrecognizable in The Crystal Ball. It does have a convoluted plot that does shadow the mansion, so it doesn't go into the mansion's history as much as I thought it might, or was hoping for. Because the ride goes really in detail, and they can pull a lot of stories from that. But I love how much they included. It actually feels like you're on the ride at some point. My favorite part was the stretchy room. Both in the ride and the movie. I love how they recreated that.
Is this haunted room actually stretching?
Is anybody else seeing this?
Yeah, I'm seeing it.
Whoa, whoa, whoa! Hold on!
I do feel that the ending was anticlimactic. And it doesn't really explain very much. There's no real resolution. So that grand finale that they set up feels hollow. I love all the references to the 2003 movie too. And after watching different interviews with the cast and crew, it looks like everybody who worked on it was really passionate about the Disney ride. So they tried to make the best movie that they could, trying to include as much as they could in clever ways, including parts of the ride and the story without feeling forced. Like even when the movie starts off, it says the "Welcome, foolish mortals." It has such a big grin on my face. So why all the hate?
You could say, these grim grinning ghosts got game.
You're all in for a treat.
Honestly, darling, I only make ghost puns when feeling spirited.
Another really fun one that I think is worth mentioning is Thanksgiving.
The longer this goes, the more twisted it gets. The weapon he's using is straight off a Thanksgiving table.
Yet another horror film named after a popular holiday, but this is a throwback to cheesy 80s slashers in all the best ways. I love the way he utilizes Thanksgiving iconography for creative kills. That makes it so much more entertaining. I also like the whodunit aspect, but it doesn't feel derivative of Scream or Blood Rage because of the impressive gore effects. It has fun with the kills too. You can tell Eli Roth put a lot of thought into it. And he's a huge horror fan, so it's one of those made by horror fans for horror fans kind of deals. I love that. I mean, the gore in here rivals Hostel, Saw, and even the Terrifier films. It's kind of what I expected, and I even expected it to be gorier, but still, I was impressed. I was very pleased. The way he presents the story, and the way it leads into each kill scene, is so much fun.
We're all tagged, and our names are at the table. But why us?
Love the killer's costume too, and the name, John Carver. That's so clever. This is a spectacular film. You could say, I'm thankful for it.
honestly, darling, with those two, there will be no leftovers, should be the catchphrase for our house.
Is there leftovers? No, wait a minute. There better not be food left over. Where's the leftovers? Is there leftovers? I think not, baby kitty.
So, the last honorable mention worth sniffing out is Cocaine Bear.
The bear, it fucking did cocaine.
This flick came out in February, but it stuck with me all year. For a movie with that title, it certainly delivers what's promised in a short and sweet 90 minutes. Good comedic writing, innovative direction, and great acting are all reasons why I like it. It's hilarious, wacky, dumb fun, full of genuinely shocking, gory moments, sprinkled all throughout. It touches on themes of greed, family, friendship, addiction, the war on drugs, and the existential conflict of man versus nature. But it's told in such an extremely over-the-top fashion, I can't help but love it. There's never a dull moment. It's not meant to be taken seriously whatsoever.
There was a bear.
A bear?
It was far.
Hey, that's inappropriate.
It's supposed to be a silly creature feature like Snakes on a Plane or the Piranhas movies. It's also clearly inspired by Jurassic Park and Jaws, with references to both included. For me, it's like a live-action Itchy and Scratchy cartoon. So I highly recommend it for fans of that. This exceeded my expectations because it could have gone very wrong. But it didn't. It could have been a much worse movie. And there are surely much worse movies out there. And oh my goodness, the highlight of the flick is that ambulance scene. Wow! All that's missing was an Elizabeth Banks cameo. That would have been great. And remember, to quote Rick James, cocaine's a hell of a drug.
Apex predator. High on cocaine.
Well. Did you know I read a book on cocaine addiction? After a few lines, I was hooked. Oh.
My number one movie of 2023. Probably no surprise because I've been raving about it since I've seen it. It's Saw X.
I still have a lot of work that needs to be done.
A sick and desperate John Kramer travels to Mexico for a risky and experimental medical procedure in hopes of a miracle cure for cancer, only to discover the entire operation is a scam to defraud the most vulnerable. It was directed by Kevin Gruter. It was written by Pete Goldfinger and Josh Stolberg. Tobin Bell returns as Jigsaw. Shawnee Smith returns as Amanda. Also starring Sonova Makati-Lund, Stephen Brand, Renata Vaca, Octavio Hinoyosa, and Paulette Hernandez. I'm not going to say too much about this flick because I already did a whole video about Saw X, so I'll leave a link below if you want to hear a more in-depth review. I was skeptical about this when it was first announced. Saw is one of my top 5 all-time favorite horror franchises. Parts 7, 8, and 9 were so disappointing. Especially Jigsaw. I don't usually go for prequels, so I went into this with low expectations. But then I got assigned to review this for Horror Buzz. What a surprise! By the way, the reason I'm so pissed about Jigsaw is because we waited all that time after being teased in the first Insidious movie. And that's what we got? Really? I was very impressed how well written, shot, and edited Saw X is. It takes time to develop the story, unlike its predecessors. It's so different from the other Saw films, yet fits in perfectly with them at the same time. What a fabulous paradox. For example, the opening scene isn't a trap like how the other movies usually start off. The traps don't even start till like halfway through the movie, but you don't notice because everything else is so compelling. The reason for this is because the density of the world building and the character development in the first act. The script characterizes Jigsaw in ways that we don't see very often, like his soft spot for children. I thought the use of his engineering abilities outside of his twisted games was fascinating. And it doesn't disappoint on the gore either. This is easily one of the goriest in the franchise. I love how the new traps are so innovative. And it's so nice to see Jigsaw get put front and center. He hasn't been in the spotlight like this since Saw 2. There hasn't been a worthy adversary like Cecilia since Strom. It doesn't suffer from the classic prequel problem, because it doesn't undo or retcon other movies. Unlike other prequels, this answered questions I wondered about, providing satisfying answers. By being a standalone story, it'll get new fans interested in the franchise if they're not familiar, and provide plenty of references for the hardcore fans like us. Make sure you stick around for the mid-credits scene too. There's a nice little added touch that really completes the film. It both restored my faith in the franchise and left me wanting more, in a good way. For this franchise, it's far from game over.
You will want to remain alert.
Well. It seems we have reached the end of the finale of Season 3. Tell me, Elder Kitty, which movie film is the best? Honestly, darling, they're all fabulous. I hope you enjoyed the show. Goodbye, world.
My favorite's the one with all the moida. Hey. Hey. Oyster. Maybe we should finish the video with a saw pun.
Yet. Only if it's sharp, darling.
I think not, Elder Giddy.
So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That's my list of my top 5 favorite horror movies of 2023. Do you agree with my picks? Did I leave something off the list that you loved? Were one of my favorites on your worst list? Or the opposite? Were one of the ones on my worst list on your favorites list? I love hearing different perspectives about horror movies. That's the beauty of art. It's subjective. So many things can be taken in from so many different people, and everyone takes it in a different way. Let's talk horror movies. What are you looking forward to in 2024? Leave comments below about that too. There's so much to talk about. So, until next time.
I'll see you at the movies.
Have a great day.
Did you know that I'm a film critic for HorrorBuzz.com? You can read my reviews on their website, and I make frequent appearances on their YouTube channel, HorrorBuzz Live, so I'll leave links below for that too.
this video is really, really, really late. I started making this back in March of 2023. But Elsa's health took a turn for the worst. And throughout the year, it kept going up and down. And I'm sorry to tell everybody, but she passed away in August. And then I started school and I had to move. But needless to say, this is going to be her final video. So this video is in memory of her. I love you, Elsa. May you rest in peace. Can we get a moment of silence for Elsa, please? Thank you. So, the show must go on. I just wanted to do a final tribute to her. I hope you enjoyed it.